What's going on, friends? What is it about Harley-Davidson that makes these motorcycles so expensive, but yet a lot of people still feel like they're so underpowered, but at the same time, so many people continue to buy and ride Harley-Davidson motorcycles? Well, if I have to explain it, you wouldn't understand. Well, if I have to explain it, you wouldn't understand is probably something you've heard related to Harley-Davidson at least once in your life. But if I don't try to explain it, we're not going to have a video today, so that's not really going to work out. Harley-Davidson really portrays itself as a very premium brand. And with a lot of the things that we talk about on this channel, you might really think Harley-Davidson's not a very reliable motorcycle because we're always talking about upgrading something on the motorcycle or in the engine itself, or doing something to extend the life of your Harley-Davidson and just overall get a better riding experience out of it. But contrary to all that, Harley-Davidsons really are very reliable motorcycles right out of the box. Guys, if you enjoyed today's video, please don't forget to hit that like button and consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't done so already. So Harley-Davidson really is honestly a very reliable motorcycle, and even more so these days. Now, once again, a lot of people will consider the Harley-Davidson very underpowered, and we'll get to that here a little bit later in the video. So, has Harley-Davidson had its factory debacles? Sure. They've had some engine problems throughout the years, but generally once you take care of those issues, they're very reliable machines. Whether it be if you bought one that had the issue, you correct that issue, or just later on as the engines evolved and Harley-Davidson fixed the problem. Harley-Davidson's very slow to do this because Harley-Davidson's about evolution and not revolution, and Willie G said that once, and it definitely shows. They don't get in a hurry to fix things. So if you're looking at statistics about Harley-Davidson motorcycles, or what is the most reliable motorcycle out there, and you throw Harley-Davidson into the mix, one thing that they really don't talk about is how many miles are actually rode on Harley-Davidson motorcycles. Just in general, from what I've seen, Harley-Davidsons get ridden more than any other brand when you're comparing everything as a large group. I know there's a lot of other manufacturers out there. They are very reliable machines, and that is reflected in the statistics, but what these statistics aren't taking into account is how many miles are put on a Harley every year versus some of the other brands. There's a lot of used Harley-Davidsons out there with quite a bit of high miles, and what is Harley-Davidson's bread and butter? Harley-Davidson's bread and butter for the company is their touring machines. Does everybody go cross-country on them? Not necessarily, but their touring machines, a vast majority of them, they do see miles and miles of endless highway duty. Now, with all these hundreds of thousands of Harley-Davidson motorcycles running around out there, racking up all these miles, especially even the older bikes racking up their miles, if you include those into the statistics, that is really going to make Harley-Davidson look kind of rough when it comes to the statistics as far as repairs, because if you think about it, you got this large number accruing all these miles. Obviously, you're going to spend a little more time getting repairs done. Now, when it comes to a Harley, everybody focuses on the failures. Say we've got thousands of motorcycles out there, hundreds of thousands of motorcycles, and we have 150 bikes that have a failure. That is what everything is going to focus on, but we don't talk about the hundreds of thousands of machines that have run for years and hundreds of thousands of miles collectively without having any serious major issues. Is there a lot of room for improvement in the engines? Absolutely. That's true with any engine. But a stock Harley-Davidson engine with nothing more than a stage 1, it's not necessarily a ticking time bomb. Now, there's no need to immediately do XYZ to a brand new Harley-Davidson motorcycle, or else the bike's going to explode. Now, a shady dealer or something, they might try to convince you of that after you sign the paperwork. Now, speaking of dealers, on the business side of Harley-Davidson, years ago, you used to walk into a Harley-Davidson dealership, there would be absolutely no motorcycles in it because, well, they just weren't available. They'd hand you a nice 8x10 glossy, and they would direct you to a desk where you could sit down and sign and place your order. Now, we all know once prices go up, they generally don't tend to come back down. Even today, with a flooded used market of Harley-Davidsons, and even brand new bikes sitting in dealer showrooms right now, the prices are still high. Now, as I mentioned, there could be some improvements in the engine, but when it comes to fit and finish on a Harley-Davidson, that is definitely reflected in the price. What really sets Harley-Davidson apart is the quality of their paint and just their overall feel of the motorcycle. Harley-Davidson always strives to go the extra mile when it comes to making some fit and finish in the bike by hiding the wires, where they use more metal than plastic, which attributes to a heavier motorcycle, which really isn't necessarily a bad thing. On a lot of other brands, you'll see like the master cylinder or something, it just looks like unfinished aluminum to me. It's just silver. But Harley-Davidson, they're actually black powder coated. So pretty much everything on the bike is either black powder coated, black anodized. They always add that extra little detail in there, not to mention where they go all out on the CVO bikes. Now, the price of a Harley-Davidson, whether it's new or even used, it is truly an investment, but it can really be a good long-term investment. It's really hard to stomach the thought of spending the big bucks on a motorcycle and not being able to get parts for it in 10 years. Not only that, Harley-Davidsons really hold their market resale value. Now, imagine buying a bike, another bike, a lot cheaper, and then it breaks. What do? You can't get parts for it. You either got to throw it away or find some used parts and hope they're better than the parts that you're taking out. So when you invest in a Harley-Davidson, you can almost guarantee you're going to be able to find parts for that bike even many, many years down the road. Harley-Davidson just absolutely has unparalleled aftermarket support. The Milwaukee 8 is what, 5 years old now? You can basically rebuild a complete Milwaukee 8 out of a catalog without even buying a part from the motor company. The fact that Harley-Davidson motorcycles are basically not throwaway bikes really tends to drive the price up, because you can keep this one motorcycle for basically a lifetime and just keep infinitely rebuilding the engine in it, or adding parts, taking away parts. You can just keep doing whatever you need to do to this bike as long as you own it. There are plenty of examples of Harley-Davidson motorcycles with well over 100,000 miles on them out there that have never really been into the engine other than just minor maintenance. And that really lends to the fact that you either have the option to rebuild that bike, or you can throw it away and get another one. You're not just locked into absolutely having to throw the bike away. And no, I don't recommend throwing your Harley-Davidson away, but if you're going to throw it away, shoot me a message. I'll take it. So here's the big question. Why spend all this money for such an underpowered motorcycle like a lot of people that don't ride, don't like, or just not familiar with Harley-Davidson motorcycles? I have to personally say no, because this comes down to exactly what the bike was designed to do. Now, naturally, Harley-Davidson never really wanted to talk horsepower until the Milwaukee 8 came around. You take a twin cam 96, 60 horsepower in a sales brochure doesn't look too exciting. But now 80 foot-pounds of torque, now that sounds a little bit better for a cruiser. Now on a 114 Milwaukee 8, 87 horsepower and about 110 foot-pounds of torque, now we're talking. I can get behind that on a cruiser. That's some power you can really use and really work with, and that looks good as a selling point. So at the end of the day, Harley's right off the showroom floor, they're cruisers, and that is exactly the kind of power that they need to be a cruiser. And if you want more, well, Harley-Davidson's got your back with the Screaming Eagle line, and boy, they like to push it. But there's a whole aftermarket out there that if you feel like you need or want more, there's plenty of it to be had out there. The stock power of a Harley-Davidson is really generally centered towards the masses. Most people are really not going to go further than putting an exhaust system on it, an air cleaner, and maybe tuning it, and that's going to be more than enough power for them. They're going to get a nice bump over the stock power, good sound, and most people just leave it at that. So there's a lot of objective reasons out there as to why Harley-Davidsons are so expensive. Are they underpowered? Not necessarily for what they are. But when it comes to the expense of a Harley, a lot of people will say, well, you're buying into kind of a club per se, or it just basically comes down to you can't beat that feeling that you get on a Harley-Davidson motorcycle. There's just nothing like it. I've rode just about any kind of motorcycle you can imagine from all different brands, and I pretty much keep coming back to Harley-Davidson. But anyhow, guys, that's all I've got for you this week. If you guys enjoyed the video, please don't forget to drop a like on the video, and consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't done so already. But until next week, guys, you stay safe on the streets, ride smart, dodge the cars, and I'll catch you guys back here next week with a brand new video. Thanks for watching.